Good morning from Muncie, Indiana, Ball State University, Amendment 651. I'll get it straight sooner or later. We're very fortunate this morning to have as our speaker Robert Smithson, president of Maxon Corporation here in Muncie. Bob is a graduate of Purdue University, so you engineers out there from Purdue, here is one of your own peers. So I expect I'll be hearing from you later. Bob has done an excellent job at Maxon Corporation, and Maxon Corporation is a little unusual due to the fact that they have an ESOP and they also have some provisions in their charter that they operate from, and I hope that he will talk on those subjects as well, because it fits right into our discussions of regard to participation and quality. Not only quality of work, but quality of life and the continuation of the corporation. The most important thing is that the products they manufacture are engineered products and are sold on the basis of quality. It's my pleasure, and please welcome Bob Smithson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, TJ, for the opportunity to talk to your class this morning and to talk a little bit about my favorite subject, which is Maxon Corporation. It's a little frightening here with all these lights. This is a new experience for me, so you'll have to somewhat bear with me. Next year, Maxon Corporation will be celebrating its 70th anniversary. The company was founded in 1916 of the outgrowth of the inventiveness and the energy of a man by Harry R. Maxon Sr. From that entrepreneurial spirit and the family control, the company today has grown to be increasingly an employee-owned and an employee-managed company. Our products are sold on a worldwide basis, and today, even though we started 70 years ago with basically an office in Muncie, Indiana, today we are represented and our products are promoted through 11 direct factory sales offices in the United States, 14 manufacturers representatives. We have 4 wholly owned subsidiaries in Europe which cover the common market, and we also have then about 15 foreign representatives which promote our products in other parts of the world. This year we are in the process of concluding or organizing our first joint venture, which will be in Mexico. The total employment in Muncie is about 240 people. We have approximately 85 people then in Europe, to comprise what we like to think of as the Maxon family. Our markets and our products, you might say, if there's an investment banker looking at us today, you might say we have a narrow product line because we sell only combustion equipment. But within the combustion industry, we have a very broad range of products and are considered a full-line combustion equipment manufacturer. At the same time, we serve a very wide spectrum or wide range of industries, with no one industry really accounting for more than 7% of our total sales, and in that probably lies one of our greatest strengths. Let's just take a moment. I think you can look around this room, and you people in Kokomo or can look around the rooms where you are. Try and find something that does not require heat in its manufacturing process. Whether it be the posters on the wall, they still have to be dried. Whether it be the light bulbs, they generally have to be sealed. The glass is melted. Heat is used practically in every piece or every item that's in this room. We are in that heating industry, and we serve that industrial heating industry in those manufacturing processes. As an example, we're in metal melting, we're in automotive, we're in textile, we're in metal finishing, we're in agriculture, food processing, and boiler manufacturing, just to name just a few. There are, in our industry, there are probably only 3 or 4 companies which are considered to be a full-line combustion equipment manufacturer. There are a lot of small companies. I don't want to mislead you. The market itself is somewhat fragmented because there are a lot of small companies which may build a single-purpose product and sell in a very local or regional area or a very specialized market. But when you get to a full-line burner company, there are probably only 3 or 4. And those would be Maxon Corporation, of course, North American Manufacturing, which is it's not the large North American Rockwell. It is a company in Cleveland, Ohio that manufactures equipment. Eclipse Fuel and Engineering, and possibly Houck Manufacturing, which is located in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. All these companies are similar in a number of ways. They were all founded about the same time. They are all about the same size. They are all basically family-owned or closely held companies. Interestingly, all these are the same companies that we primarily compete with worldwide. When you go to Japan, when you go to Europe, when you get into Mexico, these are still the same companies that we are running into and are competing with on a worldwide basis. I think part of that is because if you take all these companies and you put them into one bag and you say this is one company, you still would not probably have a company large enough to be in the Fortune 500. It's a rather small industry. It's technical. It's not high-tech. It's not the microchip industry, but it is a technical product. And therefore, I think we tend to sell what our strategy has been in the past and what we like to promote. And the attitude we like to promote is one of we don't want to be the largest burner company. We want to be the best. We like to find our niche in the marketplace, develop a product to meet that need, and then move in and try and control that market. We sell on the basis of product quality, product engineering, innovation, customer service. Those are primarily the main areas and the main strategies and techniques that we use. From a production management standpoint, because we have a very broad product line, and yet we're serving a small industry, our production runs tend to be small, and our manufacturing processes would tend to parallel those of a job shop. In order to control cost and improve our manufacturing capability, we have really made a concerted effort in recent years to invest in automated equipment, and today we have 8 numerically controlled machining centers on our machine shop floor. We have invested heavily into data processing equipment, and by the end of this year we hope to have an MRP program in place. We hope to be able to fully load automatically our machine shop, our machining centers. We have plans underway right now that we're studying to get completely into a CAD/CAM type of system. We looked at this a number of years ago, but it would have been very difficult to justify for our size of operation. The cost, we think, may now have come down, and the advancements have been made so that we can enter into this program. Up to now, we have been talking the markets. We've been talking a little bit about our product and some of our competition and our equipment, but let's take also a few minutes to talk about some of the things that we are doing in the personnel area. You might say, let's take a few minutes to talk probably about a company's most valuable asset, and that's its people. You just cannot build a first-class company with second-class people. You cannot build a good company and build a quality product unless your people are dedicated to that end. How your employees then are treated will have more to do with the success and the failure of your company and your product in the marketplace probably than any other factor. H.R. Maxon Jr., which is the son of the founder, recognized some of this years ago when he implemented a policy, an anti-nepotism policy, which says that no employee's children can ever work for Maxon Corporation. That applied to the Maxon family as well as it does to me. Part of the reasoning for that is that how do you attract good people and hold them if the top spots are going to be always occupied by some member of the family? So he felt in order to do that and to get good people, then we should have an anti-nepotism policy. This is somewhat unique. It has been very successful for us. I don't say it's right for every company, but frankly, from my viewpoint, I'm so glad that it happened that way. So today, there are no Maxons that are active in the day-to-day management of Maxon Corporation. And so, secondly, in 1977, the company implemented an ESOP program and began a process of transferring the ownership of the company from the family to the employees. Today, the employees, through the ESOP, own in excess of 30% of the stock. So what are some of the advantages of a small to mid-sized manufacturing company? What are some of the disadvantages? I'll just touch on a few, and then I'd sort of like to open it up and let you ask questions. First of all is volume. When you have a large volume, you can begin to get large production runs. And when you get large production runs, you can begin to specialize your equipment, and you begin to take some economies of scale. When you get into a small company, you don't have that luxury. Secondly, your capital resources. A large company, a Fortune 500 company, can go to the public market. The capital markets are much more accessible to them than they are to a small company. Your small company is pretty much dependent upon some of your local financial institutions and your internal generated earnings and cash flows. Your staff, small companies just basically do not have the staff. They don't have the middle layers. They really can't afford it. Therefore, their management tend to be more hands-on type of management. There just isn't anybody to whom they can delegate. That also has its advantages. Management people probably wear more than one hat. So the variety in their job, the variety in the opportunities that they get involved in, I think can be more challenging and maybe more fun. Secondly, the visibility. Any employee is probably more visible to top management in a small company because there just aren't those layers of staff and layers of management in place. And I think one of the other advantages a small company then has also, ties right into that, is without the layers of management in between, the decisions can be reached quicker. You are able to react better in the marketplace. You are able to react better to situations as they occur. So with that, TJ, I would sort of like to open it up to two questions.
Well, I'll start it off with one that is continuously asked me, and when you spoke to my 691 class last year, I think one of the first questions was, if you're not an engineer, can you get hired by Maxon?
Oh, sure. We do try and hire, and most of our salespeople are engineering graduates because the product is technical in nature. It's amazing some of the things we get into. Recent years, there's been quite a bit written about nitrogen oxides, NOx, because it is carcinogen. So in the spray dryer, which is where you make dry milk, for example, in the milk and dairy industry, NOx has become very critical. When you burn natural gas, which is basically hydrocarbon, you get carbon dioxide and water, but you also get some nitrogen oxides because you're combining it with air. So when you get into these kinds of details, the people you're dealing with, the people you're talking to are engineers, and we have found that engineers can do a much better job with our product. But we also have hired science, with science background, chemistry background, physics background. We have also all the accounting professions that are needed in the running of the operation. We have personnel people, we have purchasing people. So there are opportunities other than just engineering in this company. We are engineering dominated.
Any questions?
Yes.
What type of quality do your customers demand from Maxon?
Question is, what type of quality do the customers demand? And that's a good question. And I think maybe I can answer it better by saying we are a small company in a small industry. The people we sell our product to is an original equipment manufacturer. It may be a company which will install an entire finishing line in an automotive plant. That job may be several $1,000,000 for that count. The burners on that job, the combustion equipment on that job, may be only 10% of the total installation. Yet it probably is the heart of the installation, because if the burner and the heating equipment doesn't work, then the whole line doesn't work. So our customers really demand, when they get the equipment, it has to work. They have to be able to depend upon it, and it has to last. Those are some of then we try and support that, of course, with customer service out of Muncie.
What kind of insurance do you give them?
Reputation. You sell a great deal on your reputation as a company and your willingness to stand behind your product. And I think one of the greatest things, one of our best selling tools, is bringing a customer into our plant and into our facility and let them see how the product is made and the care that is taken by the employees and the pride that is taken by the employees in building that product is probably one of our greatest selling tools.
There's no planned obsolescence in your product, is there, Bob?
No, no. We have products today. In fact, the company was originally made Maxon Premix Burner Company in 1916. The premix came not because they were premixing concrete, but it was a device that premixed air and gas to allow you to get a hotter flame in combustion, just like a carburetor in your car. Today, we still make a premix. And there are a lot of applications where premixes are used and needed in the industrial process.
Any other questions? Any questions from out there? Are you online, Kokomo? Surprising.
Doesn't sound like anybody's there.
Joe, is Kokomo online?
We don't know. Here's Kokomo.
Have you any questions in Kokomo?
Let me check. Any questions? No, I don't think so today.
How about Bedford? You must have made it too clear for them.
I can't believe that.
I can't either.
We had a lot of questions. I think in that first session, why we're going so much.
Hello?
Yes.
It takes a long time for these phones to do their thing. This is Bedford. We don't have any questions, but we just want to let you know we were here.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think some of the questions we had that in your earlier class dealt more in the foreign area, foreign trade, which is in the news. We feel one of our real growth markets in the next 5 to 10 years is in the foreign markets. Mexico particularly, even though with their economic problems, is probably developing into an industrial center. It probably will become one of the largest automotive assembly operations in the world. We sell a lot of products into that industry, and that's one of the reasons we're going into Mexico. We see some of the heavy industry, as most of these people will probably know, moving into the Far East, Korea, India. How do you enter? How do you approach those markets? Being a small company, because we don't have the resources to do a lot of that. We see an evolving trend in joint ventures as a way of getting into some of those markets and expanding our markets. This country, I don't think manufacturing is on its way out. It provides too many jobs. You hear a lot about the demise of the rust bucket in the Midwest, the demise of the manufacturing in the United States. I don't believe that, because they provide too many jobs, and we're going to find a way as a people and as a country to keep those jobs. I think it is going to take all of our ingenuity and our creativeness to compete, but I think we can do it. As you spread out those fingers, there becomes a lot of problems, communication, language, customs, and because you get into these countries, they don't do business the same way we do it. and they have different ways of viewing it. So I think we as a company, as a nation, have to be more flexible in some ways of approaching those. We have dealt with some licensees in various parts of the world. Our experience with licensees has not always been that great. It seems like it's good initially, but then after a time you reach a point where you're either going to have to get in business with them, become a partner, or back out entirely. And if you back out entirely, you've already given them your technology. So there are some real disadvantages to going with a licensing approach. If you enter, I think you really need to enter it with the attitude that eventually that's going to develop into either a joint venture or you're going to end up buying or owning that company to protect yourself. Yeah.
With this joint venture in Mexico, as far as the management goes in that place, would you use Mexican people or take your own people down there to manage Mexico?
We have it in Europe, and we will be doing the same thing in Mexico, is using natives. There is no way somebody from here can go down to Mexico and learn how to operate and run a company down there. There's too many laws, too many regulations, there's too many customs.
So you need to find people who have been trained
That's right.
in the U.S.
Yes.
This is Jim Knight from Delco Remy.
Yes.
And I have a couple of questions. I believe I understood you said that you are doing some business with the automotive industry.
Yes.
And with the trend towards statistical process controls, or is Maxon Incorporated using statistical process control? Also, are you leaning toward robotics like a lot of the heavy-duty industry is doing these days?
Two very good questions. The first on statistical quality control is yes, we do use it, have used it for some time. I cannot really give you the details on it, but it is used in our manufacturing process. As regards robotics, we have not moved into robotics, and again it gets back to the fact that our production runs are small. It would be very difficult for us to justify that kind of an expenditure. Robotics again tend to be for longer production runs, someplace where you can specialize and have repetitive tasks in place. Numerical controlled machinery, yeah, we are moving in that direction, have moved and made a considerable investment over the last several years. That gives us some flexibility in our setups, as you can well imagine, because it becomes a matter primarily of changing tapes and cutting down our setup times. So.
Thank you very much, sir.
Any other questions?
Yes.
You mentioned about going abroad, but has Maxon Corporation been affected by any foreign operations coming to the U.S.?
No. The question is, has Maxon operations been affected by foreign imports, which is, and as I say, worldwide, the people we run into are American companies. And I think a lot of that is because natural gas was first used in the United States and the technology and the companies was developed in the United States. Natural gas is only now becoming readily available in Europe. And I think the next 5 years you'll see some real growth in the natural gas industry in Europe because they are probably at the stage we were 20 years ago. Gas is coming from the North Sea, gas is coming from in from Russia. It comes a little bit up from Algeria. It is the pipelines, the distribution system is developing. You get into Japan, in the Far East, they import most of their energy. They use a lot of butane, a lot of propane, which are basically manufactured gases. In South Africa, they use basically coal gas, and coal gas has been available for a long time. So there are a lot of different fuels used, but when you get into natural gas, I think the technology is basically developed in the United States, and that is where our primary competition comes from. So.
What about South Korea?
South Korea is definitely developing as a heavy industry. Most of a lot of your foundries, your metal melting industries are moving into that area. There's no question it's going to be a developing market for it.
President Kokomo.
Yes, thank you.
A little bit loud there. On your stock ownership, you mentioned it was privately held and now it has become an employee-owned company. Could you tell a little bit how you established the price of the stock
and if it is listed on the over-the-counter market now, and how the growth has been in the stock value.
Sure. The question is basically, how does the ESOP work? I probably rephrased and shortened it up a little bit. The stock is not traded over the counter. It is not available to the public. The majority of the stock is still owned by the Maxon family at this point. Over 30% of it is owned by the trust, with voting rights passed through to the employees. The stock value is set. We retain an investment banking firm in Louisville by the name of J.J.B. Hilliard, I think it's W.L. Lyons Company, Hilliard Lyons. They annually come up to they visit the company, talk with management, see our numbers, review our financial statements, and then they compare that to other companies which are in our industry that are sold in the public marketplace and arrive at an appraised value. That value then is used for transaction with the employees on our stock. The stock is held by the trust until an employee retires. At the time of retirement, then whatever the dollar value of his account is, he is distributed shares that would equal that value. He has the option at that point of either selling the stock immediately back to the company, back to the trust, or he can sell it, he can hold on to it, collect the dividends and the appreciation in the stock. Has the stock appreciated? Yes, very much so. I cannot tell you the figures right off the top of my head, but I think in the last, there's no question. I say in the last, since 1977, I think it has gone up over tenfold at this point. So it's been very beneficial for the employees.
Bob, under your ESOP plan, if you hold it until your demise, the estate has to sell it back to the trust, do they not?
The stock has a restriction on it that when it's sold, and it can be transferred in an estate, but when you go to sell the stock, it must first be offered back to the trust first. If the trust is not in a position to buy it or does not want to buy it, then it has to be offered to the company. It has a crack at it, and at that point it would be free to sell in the marketplace.
What's been your experience so far?
The trust has always bought it back.
Yeah.
Are you subject to export license? And then when you go to venture, how do you control overseas?
I'm sure I'm not. Are we subject to an export license? Was your first question. And we obviously are subject to all the regulations that any other company would be subject to in selling overseas. We did request permission and had to file forms with the U.S. government when we have foreign subsidiaries to do that. When you enter into a transaction or a contract with a foreign representative, that does not require any special license arrangement. The second question I didn't really hear.
When you go joint venture overseas, how does Maxon group control that you don't control?
The question is, when you enter into a joint venture overseas, how do you ensure that you will have control of the company, even though you may have 49% of the stock, which is basically the situation in Mexico. They do not allow a foreign company to have majority ownership. There are a number of things that you can do. And the first thing I would encourage you to do is find you a good Mexican law firm in Mexico or a good law firm in the country in which you want to enter into a joint venture. And you can work through the American Chamber of Commerce. There's a good source of information on that. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has what they call AmChamps throughout the world that are very well staffed and do a very excellent job. Then the second thing is, in your bylaws and your charter, you write restrictions in there on those things that you feel that you want to control. Like on capital stock. If in order for your partners to sell out or sell you out, they must have 80% vote of all shareholders. So that would force you into the position where you can control those kinds of transactions. And there's 4 or 5 major things that you can do that will ensure that on those important points in operating the business that are required for control, you can maintain. Does that answer your question?
Bob, you mentioned that that employees were your most valuable asset, and I firmly believe that, as you know. Do you feel that the ESOP plan and the fact that the employees can become an owner in Maxon has improved that attitude of your employees toward the company to building a quality product?
Yes. The question is, what has the ESOP impact had on the employee and the employee's attitude and morale? And I personally do not feel that there is any question that it has had a dramatic impact. We have gone to, you have to understand that as a private company, we did not share much information with our employees. Beginning in 1977, as employees became shareholders, there was a real need to begin to share with them information, sales numbers, what our order situation was, how we were doing as a company. We began, and we did not do that at first. And at first the employees were very suspicious. We were not used to giving that information out, and they frankly were not used to hearing it. They didn't know what it was, so we did have some problems. We now have quarterly meetings with our entire employees once a quarter, where we sit down and we invite them up and we break it into 3 groups. We share with them information as regards the order situation, the business conditions, some of the orders that we're working on. We've gone to great length to have our people from Europe come over and explain to them and show slides and pictures of that operation over there and how they explain how they operate. And all of this has had a dramatic impact upon their awareness of the company, what we do, how we do it, and has had a real awareness of the operation it has then fed back into the product quality. It's not uncommon to walk through our shop today and have somebody a peer get on one of his fellow employees and who might be dogging it and saying, "Hey, you're affecting my ESOP." Or when that goes out, it's got to be right, or you're affecting our company. So that attitude has developed. It's taken time, but it is there.
The follow-up question, Bob, do you have an employee involvement or a quality circle or some program of that type?
Not a formal program. We do not have. We try and have encouraged our supervisors, floor supervisors, to work with our people in that regard. We ask for input, and there's very few things or decisions that are made on the floor where we have not gone to the people and received input, but we do not have a formal quality control program.
Do you feel that you're getting all the input you possibly could from your employee?
Oh, no. I wish that was the case, but I don't think we want to be that optimistic. There is always room for improvement in those areas, and that's a continual process. It's something you work at every day, and if you don't, you'll lose it. It's something you just have to be conscious of.
I was wondering what union would be involved if a company prior to 1977 had attempted to become unionized. Is there a union in that type of business? I would assume that there is. And what is it?
It's interesting. The question is what union would, if we were unionized, what union would that be? And we are non-union to start with. The company is non-union. We believe we don't have anything against unions. We think, frankly, they serve a purpose in many companies. We don't think they're really necessary in Maxon Corporation. We like to think we have an open door policy where they can come and directly to top management, and they do come to top management and talk. There was an attempt in 1974 and again in 1979 to unionize Maxon Corporation. At that time it was the UAW. which did conducted a campaign at that time. Our employees, both kinds, did elect to stay non-union.
It surprises me that in '79 that there would have been an attempt, since you said you implemented the ESOP in '77. It seems like they probably would have been pretty pleased by then. But
Well, if you also will recall, I said when we first started that there were problems. There were suspicions. And the first couple of years, what they were getting was a slip of paper said was worth so much, but they really had never seen a certificate. Nobody had retired and received anything. We were learning how to communicate with our employees on such business matters, and they were learning how to hear it, because communication is a two-way street. At the same time, I would say in 1979 the election was won decisively by the company, and I think the ESOP played a very large role in that. Yes?
Do you use the just-in-time theory of, zero defects and zero inventory?
The question is, do we use just the just-in-time theory and also the zero defects, which are really sort of two different issues. The just-in-time of course, came from Japan. And the theory on that is that the raw material that you need, or the product that you need, or the part that you need arrives on your receiving dock the day that you need it to go into the product and ship out the door, so that you reduce basically your overall investment in inventory and supplies and material. We are using that, yes. Our growth in the last 2 years, it's not an Apple computer type of growth, but we like to think that over the long run we'll have 4% real growth. In 1984 and 1985 we will have experience in the 10 to 15% growth per year, and we've been able to maintain inventories and actually reduce inventory levels a little bit because of the work we're doing with material requirements and planning and the use of automated data processing equipment. Zero defects is something that you work at and work towards all the time. We like every piece of equipment that goes out our shop has been inspected, and we like to think there are no defects. Our returns from customers for defects in material and workmanship are extremely low. That does not mean that we do not have and do not reject parts during our manufacturing process. That goes on continually.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes?
To manufacture the product which you do, many different types of raw materials do you possess, and how many suppliers do you have for each?
The question is how many different raw materials do we use, and also then how many suppliers do we have to supply those. I can't answer your first question. I just don't have any idea. We predominantly use cast iron and cast steel. We also, of course, get into a lot of metal stampings. We do not have a stamping operation. We would buy those parts from the outside. In terms of number of suppliers, again, I really just don't have that information. I can't answer it. One of the problems a small company has, and I think it gets back to your volume impact again. We may be buying order quantities of 100 or 200 or 300 of a part. We don't really swing a large lever with a supplier. And if we begin to fragment that up and split it among several different suppliers, then you've even lost that kind of leverage. You've even watered it down further. So there is probably a tendency for us on critical parts to have a backup supplier. But on the other non-critical parts, probably to even go with one supplier a lot of times in order to get the larger quantities, larger discounts, and control your cost.
The follow-on question to that, Bob. The trend is in the highly production corporations to have long-term contracts with one supplier, even though it may cause you a problem if they have a breakdown or a strike or something. Do you feel that that's a good trend, and do you think that would be one that Maxon might be entering into?
It's an interesting question, TJ, and I really don't know. I think there's some risk in that from a purchaser standpoint in doing it. On the other hand, I think there's probably some real benefit if that responsibility is felt by both parties, and that provides an opportunity for a marriage, and that probably would be fine. We are not doing anything right now into that area.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
I would like to get back to the ESOC program,
Sure.
if you don't mind. I'm curious, how did this program affect the middle managers and more specifically their relationship with the hourly employees?
The question is on the ESOT, how does that affect the relationship between the hourly worker and the supervisor, or the supervisor and the upper management, really, in the whole view? In our particular case, I don't think it has had a dramatic effect, any negative effect whatsoever. If anything, it has improved and encouraged communication between the two groups. I feel we have a rather unique situation because our employees, I think all of us feel we're all part of a family. We all have a responsibility to do, and whether you're just the spoke in the wheel, you're the hub, we're all pulling together in the same boat. Now that sounds idealistic, and that's what we strive for, and that's not always going to, sure, we have our differences and our arguments and our disagreements, but I do think there is a genuine feeling among our people that we're all in the same boat together, and we're all trying to get the same goals and the same objectives. And I think the ESOT's gone a long way to accomplishing that.
Do you plan on expanding on that idea at all? Or employee involvement?
We do. The question is, do you plan on expanding with employee involvement? And I think yes. The answer is yes. Do we have a formal plan to do it right now? No. It's sort of an everyday type of thing that you work at and you encourage. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, with computer jargon and language, mostly being known by young people. I was wondering, you're saying you're becoming more automated if you're having any trouble with early retirement to the labor force, things like that.
The question is whether with the automated processes, the higher tech tools, what you're saying, what you have to use, is that are the older employees feeling uncomfortable and therefore electing to take early retirement? We have been having some early retirements. I don't think it's because of those kinds of things. I think it's been more because of the ESOT and the success of the company. They have been able to retire early. We have not seen that kind of, in fact, some of our older employees are some of the most anxious to get their hands on those kinds of tools, and it's rather interesting. Particularly PCs, we're seeing, we have in our office now, I think 5 or 6 PCs, and sometimes it's the older employee who becomes most enthused and most excited by being able to work with those kinds of tools. Now the younger people we hire have already been exposed to it, so that may be part of it too. Yes?
Do you have a formal training or retraining program for your employees?
We have a formal training program for new employees, and then of course we encourage our existing employees to take advantage of a number of seminars and opportunities that are available not only through Ball State but other AMA, American Management Association, has a number of courses. There's a whole industry out there that provides those kinds of training and tools to keep current. We have also an educational assistance program that we will pick up part of the tab for employees if they go back to school to improve themselves. So we have all those kinds of things in place, as most companies do, I think.
Bob, I certainly appreciate your taking the time. And on behalf of the class, I have a book here on quality is free, because this is one of the things we're emphasizing. And I have known for years that this is something that you have emphasized at Maxon. So on behalf of the class, I'd like to give you...
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Watch your eye. We will take a 10-minute break.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.